Whilst travelling to India, the Prime Minister has said that he feels that he has nothing to hide. On what basis should we believe him? Should we take him at his word, given the ham-fisted attempts yesterday in the Commons to try and delay this investigation?
Well, look, we're going to have multiple opportunities for the Prime Minister's word to be tested. We've got the Met investigation ongoing. We've committed that when that's finished, Sue Gray will complete her report, update her report. The Prime Minister will come back to Parliament. And we've now got the privileges investigation. This is going to be the most looked at event possibly since the Second World War.
Why did you try to delay it then?
I'm not so sure we did. I think there's some confusion around that.
We had the Education Secretary, Nadeem Zahawi, sitting where you are yesterday at this time, saying that was exactly what you were trying to do.
But I was in the House on Tuesday afternoon when the Prime Minister was asked this question directly. What did he want the House to do? And he said it's for the House to decide. I think that was in response to Stella Creasy. And that's where we got to. I think where the confusion was is that there was a concern that the House investigation, the Privileges Committee, would begin an investigation, an inquiry, while the Met investigation was ongoing and before the Sue Gray report was finally published. I think that confusion was cleared up and it became clear that they would not commence that until the Met was finished and the Gray report was published.
So there wasn't an amendment tabled, there wasn't an amendment pulled minutes before the vote then?
Well, the Prime Minister...
I missed that.
Well, the Prime Minister has been very clear that the House can look at this, the House will look at this, and he is confident that when the full context... One of the other things he said in the House on Tuesday is that he was frustrated that he couldn't speak about the context of all of this, put the full facts into the public domain while these various processes are ongoing, particularly the Met. Sure. He remains confident that when people can see the full context of what happened, it will be clear that he was straightforward. He said to the House in good faith that he believed the rules were followed.
People might take you at face value were it not for the fact that we have been here before in precisely the same situation. This is Owen Paterson, Volume 2. The Conservative Party tries to play games with Erskine May, with parliamentary procedure. It's clear that you don't have the support on your own back benches to go through with it. You pull it, you've got egg in your face. It's another crunching gear change, another embarrassing U-turn.
Well, I don't accept that there's any parallel to the Owen Paterson situation. That was a situation where the Standards Committee had looked at something, it had come to a conclusion, it had made a recommendation, and the House rebelled in an attempt...
to change the rules.
Yes, I'm just accepting that. The House rebelled in an attempt to change that. I think people concede in retrospect that was a mistake. This was around how the Privileges Committee could look at all of the events around the events in Downing Street. And I think the only question was around timing. And as I say, the Prime Minister said on Tuesday, it'll be for the House to decide. The Prime Minister said from India, he has nothing to fear, nothing to hide. He looks forward to that process. He looks forward to the full facts and, crucially, the context coming out.
I'm sure he's looking forward to it. But
I think he's looking forward to this ending. I think he's looking forward to drawing this to a conclusion, for it to be examined fully so that we can move on to the things that people are genuinely concerned about in terms of cost of living, energy price rises, all those other things, the situation going on in Ukraine, the things that are inbound towards the government, probably the most challenging set of circumstances facing a government in peacetime.
But let's be absolutely clear. In letting yesterday's motion essentially go through on the nod, the government has basically admitted this. Assertions the Prime Minister has made on the floor of the House about the legality of activities in Number 10 and the Cabinet Office appear to amount to misleading the House. I mean, I'm old enough to remember when Cabinet Ministers would step down for inadvertently misleading the House. Amber Rudd did it. So why is there any question right now of the Prime Minister going?
Well, there's no question of the Prime Minister going.
Not going, I should say.
The question is, how do we complete this process? How do we get the facts into the public domain? How are they fully examined? And how can the Prime Minister then speak very candidly about the context in which events happened? Can we just finish this on the motion? Because this is very important. That was an Opposition Day motion. Opposition motions happen all the time. They're frequently not voted on. The motion intended to get the events, the events surrounding what happened in Downing Street in front of the committee. That has happened. That's the consequence. What the motion said was really neither here nor there.
This House believes that the Prime Minister's conduct appears to amount to misleading the House. As I said, Amber Rudd resigned for less than what the Prime Minister has done. I mean, genuinely, I think we are now at the point where we have to ask the question, under what circumstances would this Prime Minister resign? What would it take for him to leave Downing Street? I mean, Beth Rigby asked him about this on the plane on the way out to India. His response is pretty dramatic. Not a lot springs to mind.
Well, the Prime Minister... look, I was at the event in Downing Street, the statement on Tuesday. I went to the 22 committee and I listened to the Prime Minister explain to the parliamentary party what the unfinished business of his government is and what he wants to deliver for the British people. I walked out with him, totally coincidentally. He wasn't talking to me about parties or inquiries or Metropolitan Police investigations. He wanted to talk to me about what was going on in Northern Ireland.
I will ask
he wanted
again,
to talk about the business of government.
What would it take for this Prime Minister to resign? We know that he won't resign when, the police essentially point out that he has broken the law inside Downing Street. He won't resign when senior members of his cabinet break the law by attending parties in Downing Street. He won't resign when the Supreme Court rules that he has acted unlawfully in proroguing Parliament and he has misled the Queen. We already know, of course, because it's being talked about in the papers as well, you're already preparing to break international law again by tearing up the Northern Ireland Protocol. So again, I ask the question...
Forgive me, how are we preparing to break international law?
The reports this morning are that we're getting to the point now, in terms of the Northern Ireland Protocol, that we're going back to the drawing board, that you will pass legislation that will essentially allow you to tear it up. But the question I've asked...
Well, this is very important, because you just said that the government is preparing to tear up international law regarding
you did break international law once before.
You've just put to me, as a Northern Ireland minister, that we're preparing to break international law on the Northern Ireland Protocol. If you're talking about the long-standing assertion, going back as far as July last year, that we believe that the circumstances, the threshold for triggering Article 16, a provision of the treaty, of the protocol, a provision of the very protocol, invoking that provision, that's not breaking international law. That is applying a trigger mechanism that is built into the protocol.
We had Brandon Lewis in the House of Commons not that long ago suggesting that you would break international law. Again, I'll repeat the point. Domestic law he has broken, constitutional law he has broken, international law he has broken. At what point do we have to ask whether or not this Prime Minister has any respect for the rule of law?
You have asserted that the Prime Minister has misled Parliament. I do not accept that. I believe that the Prime Minister, when he said to the House of Commons at each stage what he said, he believed, on the advice that he was receiving, that what he told in good faith the House of Commons was correct.
Do you think
and when it has emerged,
the Prime Minister broke the law? Simple question.
So
do you think the Prime Minister broke the law?
Prime Minister and the Chancellor of the Exchequer both received fixed penalty notices for that event in the Cabinet Room in Number 10. Both of them have accepted the fixed penalty notice and both of them have paid it. The Prime Minister said to the House on Tuesday...
It sounds like you don't believe that he broke the law.
He said on Tuesday that it did not occur to him, then or subsequently, that gathering, that meeting, which was to discuss very important matters in relation to the government's, the United Kingdom's response to COVID, was in any way a breach of the rules. However, he has said he accepts the decision that the Metropolitan Police have come to, which is a different conclusion, and he has paid the fine.
None of which answers the question. Do you think that the Prime Minister broke the law, or do you still maintain that he was ambushed by a cake?
Well, I was trying to make a point, and it's not often you get to write a line in your obituary live on national television. I was trying to make a point that the Prime Minister had been outside London. He'd visited a school. I think he did 8 or 10 meetings in Downing Street that morning before going to Hertfordshire to visit the school. He had returned to start another meeting to which the Chancellor came to the Cabinet Room to attend, and in between that there was a spontaneous gathering to wish him a happy birthday. He was conducting the business of government. In a sense now, that is all irrelevant. He has accepted the decision of the police, he has paid the fine, and he is now accepting all the inquiries into this so that the full facts can be established.
Sure,
he is committed that when the Grey report comes forward...
some sort of fringe opinion, that it's some kind of niche view that Boris Johnson has misled the House. 80% of the British public thinks he's lying.
Well, I do not believe the Prime Minister has lied, and I believe that when the full facts are seen, when the context comes out, that it will be clear that the Prime Minister, at every time that he came to Parliament, was faithful and genuine and true in what he believed.
61% of Tory voters in 2019 do not believe him.
What I believe is that the Prime Minister told the House what he believed to be the truth in good faith at each stage. And when there has been a development subsequent to that, new information, he has corrected the record. The other important thing, and this is important, he has accepted that the Number 10 operation was not working as it should have done. He has fundamentally restructured his operation in Number 10 to make it much more transparent and accountable. He's brought in Steve Barclay as Chief of Staff, David Canzini, a formidable political operative as Deputy Chief of Staff. He's got new parliamentary private secretaries. The operation is now much more streamlined and effective to serve the Prime Minister and the government's agenda.
How many more fixed penalty notices can Boris Johnson receive without resigning? I mean, Channel 4's Gary Gibbon put the point to the PM yesterday. You look at Downing Street, you look at the number of fines that have been issued. I'm not sure there's a workplace in the entire country that has had more FPNs handed out than Downing Street. So how many is too many?
I think, look, it would be completely wrong for me as a serving government minister to try and influence or comment on a live police investigation. The police must get on with it. I think they've now gone quiet until after the local elections, although their work will carry on. Let's get all the information out there. We want it out there as quickly as possible because the Prime Minister wants to get on with the business of delivering for the British people on that amazing majority that he won just over 2 years ago. The stuff going on in Ukraine, watching the Prime Minister marshalling the international community's response to the events of President Putin's incursion invasion into Ukraine, seeing the Prime Minister representing Britain walking around the streets of downtown Kiev with President Zelensky. These are the things the Prime Minister wants to get on with. And I think those are really the things the British people ultimately want to see us get on with too.